Coming up, Bob Iger says that Disney has Star Wars films planned until 2030, so we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about what we want to see out of the Star Wars franchise in this episode of DIS POP. DIS POP is brought to you by Dreams Unlimited Travel, experts at helping you plan the perfect vacation. Visit them on the web at dreamsunlimitedtravel.com. Well, hello, everybody. I am your host, Ryno Clavin, and for this episode of DIS POP, I am joined by two special people. My little chicken nugget, Steve Porter.
Hey, guys.
And my Shamrock Shake, Craig Williams.
I don't like either of those.
Everybody's got to be a food item today. I'm your Big Mac daddy. Oh, I hate my life. I hate saying it. It makes me feel uncomfortable, and I've got a cold sweat going. Anyway, so Star Wars. I feel like we've talked about, last week we talked about Disney music. The week before that, it's been a lot of Beauty and the Beast. It's been a lot of Disney animation. We haven't really talked about Star Wars in a little while. So I figured Star Wars Day, and I'd bring in the people who I know love Star Wars the most in my life, Craig and Steve here. So I want to go over some news, and then later in the show, we'll talk about what maybe we want to see out of the Star Wars universe. I don't know. It doesn't have like a cool, like the MCU, does it? It'd be like SW. It doesn't have an abbreviation like the Marvel.
I want to say there is something like that.
Well, I don't want to look it up right now because I don't want to. I'm feeling lazy. So first of all, we talked about. So we all know the newest, the Star Wars film of this year is The Last Jedi, title released recently, and that is Episode 8. I always have to do the math now because I'm like, okay, 6 and then plus 1 is 7, and then we're looking for 8 this year. So Star Wars Episode 8, directed by Rian Johnson, big fan of his. Looking forward to that very much. We reported about that title a little while back. Now there is some new information about that title, and for people that speak other languages than English, that have identifiers that let you know whether something is plural or not, we've learned that the title, The Last Jedi, is actually plural. Because Jedi is like moose, both singular and plural. So I saw the title, the official thing that was released, the official title card said Los Últimos Jedi. So the Last Jedi, which I think is it's pretty interesting. So essentially this could be referring to Luke, Kylo Ren, and Rey. I know some people say Kylo Ren's a Sith. I don't know. When Episode 7 came out and they released the Star Wars merchandise, the doll, if you pushed it a couple of times, it actually said he referred to himself as the Last Jedi at one point. So I'm curious. We haven't heard the word.
I think it also points to the fact that it's not maybe a particular character that's going to die.
Perhaps it's just the Jedi in general.
Yeah, the Jedi are over.
Yeah, well, that was one of the things I wrote. Like, could this mean the end of the Jedi Order? Perhaps maybe that's it. It's the end of that and the establishing of a new type of Force religion.
That's what I think is going to happen.
Well, it's interesting because Rogue One specifically showed in Chirrut, the blind monk, a people who are essentially disciples of the Force but aren't Jedi. He was a guardian of the Wills, which is the people who guard the Jedi Temple, and they're aware of the Force and they embrace the Force, but they're not a knight. They don't study the Force in the same way. So it'd be interesting to see if this is going to be the birth of something like that, or perhaps that's the reason why they introduced that in Rogue One, because they're going to go back to it now later. Because there is a rumor out there that there is stuff in Rogue One that is directly going to relate to Episode 8.
I've heard a rumor online that was basically along the lines of that the Jedi are going to end because the Jedi represent the light and obviously the Sith represent the dark, but the idea is you're trying to bring balance to the Force. So you're trying to find something that takes a little bit of both.
You can't get rid of one without the other.
Yeah.
Interesting.
You may be familiar with this from the boy wizard himself, Harry Potter.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead. One cannot live. One. It's like the other cannot live. Well, or the other one. One cannot live while the other one lives.
They both have to die.
Yeah. So that'll be interesting. I never thought about it like that. That's a really really good point. But Bob Iger said a couple of very generic things about Star Wars recently. One of the things he addressed, too, is that we've had the unfortunate passing of Carrie Fisher this last year. But she did officially film all of her scenes for The Last Jedi, Episode 8. And he said that her death will not impact the story of Episode 8 whatsoever. So they don't have to deal with that until the next film, which is being directed by Colin Trevorrow or Trevorrow, however you prefer to pronounce it, the director of Jurassic World. He's doing the follow-up, Episode 9. So I know they had a meeting of the minds to discuss what they were going to do with that, but we still haven't really heard about that yet.
Well, I think they did address that. He did say that she wouldn't be a CGI character.
Yes, yeah, they said, because for those of you who have seen Rogue One, if you haven't, spoiler alert, but Princess Leia, the young Princess Leia, like the one from the opening of A New Hope, makes an appearance at the very end of Rogue One, and it was an actress combined with a little bit of a CGI, kind of a, what do they call that effect? De-aging effect.
I was not paying attention to you.
To make the actress look exactly like Carrie Fisher, essentially, in A New Hope. There is actually a video online that you can watch and see how they did that, or you can get your Blu-ray copy of The Force Awakens the first week of April, the first Tuesday of April.
Rogue One, you mean?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just really have been wanting to watch The Force Awakens a lot lately, so I can't get it out of my head, but which I will do. Unfortunately, there's not going to be really any deleted scenes because of all those deleted scenes controversies and everything. It's a little unfortunate. But I also read today about some interesting cameos that are going to take place in The Last Jedi. You may remember from The Force Awakens, there were some cameos in there, like Daniel Craig was the stormtrooper who was harassing Rey while she's imprisoned, and then she gets into his head. Well, this movie says apparently Tom Hardy's going to make a cameo. And Prince Charles and Prince Henry, both. And then somebody named Gary Barlow, who's apparently a member of an English pop group called Take That, which I am not familiar with, but apparently they did carpool karaoke with James Gordon at one point. So,
Interesting.
there's that. I said Gordon, didn't I?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sorry, Jimmy. Mispronounced your last name there. But anyway, and then a little bit other for the super nerds out there. There's this whole, like, they haven't shown it yet, but the AT-ATs, heavily featured in the Battle in Hoth, in Empire Strikes Back, and in Rogue One on Scarif. They're going to undergo a kind of a remodel and an upgrade for the new movie, which they are apparently referred to as guerrilla walkers during production, but that's not a name necessarily used in the movie, but they're going to be used in some sort of large sequence from the film. So some sort of battle sequence, which I'm just starting to get excited now. These little details are leaking out there, but they apparently resemble gorillas. Like the front arms are said to be firmly planted on the ground, and the walkers are considerably larger than the old AT-ATs with thick armor, and what's described as a crossbar that lets the legs scoop forward and then scoop back up. So the idea is that they're not weak in the knees the way the other ones were, so they're not susceptible to being tripped or something.
They
like
learned
that.
their lesson.
So, yeah, finally. Still building those planets with the issues, planet killer weapons with the issues in the center, but they've solved the leg problem on AT-ATs. So good work, Empire. You get one of these. It's a thumbs up.
I think they know what a thumbs up is.
Well, if they're listening, they can't hear my thumbs
fine.
up. So now they
Fair
can.
enough.
Anyway, so then also Iger spoke a little bit about the Han Solo film directed by Phil Lord and Chris Miller. He was talking about that. He spoke at the University of Southern California this past Thursday, and he alluded to the fact that Han Solo is not actually Han Solo's name. I do not know how I feel about this. In a world where there are names, one of the people's names in the cantina is like Floppy McCool or something like that. It's McCool is his name. Like he's a cool McDonald's guy.
Yes, that is a common last name. Not a common one, but I do know a McCool.
You know somebody named McCool?
I actually do, yeah. Yeah, it was one of my elementary school teachers, Mr. McCool. I'm not lying at all.
No.
I will show you on Facebook after this is over.
Interesting. Well, it's weird. It's weird that they would choose to now officially make like Han Solo's name. Like that's not his real name.
Well, this is where you run into the issues with what I've been actually paying attention to instead of listening to you talk is the entire Star Wars expanded universe. So I think everyone knows, including you, are aware of the fact that Star Wars has not just been localized to movies, but there's been many books, Marvel comics, video games, radio dramas, like basically everything that you can, TV specials. And that all falls under the expanded universe just beyond the films. But then I guess I must have been out of it for a while because then I was looking at the official levels of canon, which start getting more. They have like the George Lucas level, then they have a Clone Wars canon, then they have a continuity canon, a secondary canon, and a non-continuity canon. Canon. Wow, I said canon a lot of times. Take your drinks.
Yeah, that's the word.
So now that we have these new movies, like the George Lucas canon, that is only stuff from 1 through 6. So where is the Force Awakens coming into? Is that coming now into a secondary canon where it's not George's per se, but like is that how that was taken?
There is a person that's in charge of this. It's one guy's job at Lucasfilm.
Yeah, no, this is the more I'm reading about it now since they screwed everything up after, when Disney bought Lucasfilm and they decided to like go full balls to the wall with it. They have screwed up a lot of confusing stuff that was already kind of mixed up to begin with the books and this, that, and the other. So, for me with this one, if it really screwed up with George Lucas's feelings on it, like if he said, no, Han Solo's name is Han Solo.
Oh, are you worried he's going to come out and contradict what Disney says?
Yes. I'm not worried. I think it will happen. I think as long as George Lucas is alive, he will continually contradict stuff that
and he's going to do it on purpose, I think, to get like under their skin. It's the same way where he was like, I don't like The Force Awakens. All right, George. Well, none of your 3 movies were very good either. Yeah. I mean, you've done 4 of them, but...
Granted, with Rogue One, he didn't really come out and...
He said he liked that one.
Yeah, he didn't come out and say anything negative, but Rogue One also doesn't fall in his canon of the actual numbered films. And granted, Han Solo then would follow that same thing where it's not in, so maybe it doesn't count as much.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. It's the hard part about when they sell it off to Disney and Disney trying to unify and streamline the canon was essentially they dropped all the books, they dropped all the comics, the video games, everything, and they were like everything that's released from now on. So the the Marvel Star Wars comics that have come out since the purchase in 2012 are official canon. Yeah. So Han Solo's got like an ex-wife. So the idea, I guess, of Kylo Ren, like Han and Leia's son kind of going to the dark side was borrowed from one of the original extended canons. Yeah. One of their twin kids, I think.
And Disney dropped that and they now call it Legends.
It's Star Wars Legends. Acknowledge it. Yeah. So it is weird. It is like
too complicated for me.
Well, and see, I'm just a casual. I like Star Wars. I love the movies. You know what I mean? And I like the idea of a unified universe. But I'm not somebody. I never read a lot of the books or anything like that. And so, but this is a franchise that has devotees that this is a religion for them, and it's I respect that. But at the same time, like it has to be accessible for the common moviegoer. I always think my mom's gonna know what's going on.
You have to be able to Wikipedia it if you and learn enough.
Yes, yeah, I think that's a good. Yeah, you should be able to at least be able to follow along. It's fun, like nods to the outer lying franchises, like the Saw Gerrera character in Rogue One being from Star Wars Rebels. That kind of unifies that matters. So when people watch that show, it makes them feel like it's a part of it. The same way like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is technically a part of the MCU, or Daredevil, Punisher. Those are all supposed to exist together. But the further down that line we get, the less payoff I think we're actually going to eventually get. Like the movies and the shows are never going to really cross over. And I sort of feel like that with Star Wars. It's going to be the same situation where they're going to create some little stories on the outside, but it's like where does it go? Also, there was a Lego Star Wars TV show or something that is officially part of the canon too, but you're like, so they're Lego people in the canon?
Yeah, that's confusing.
Yeah, so
Maybe just the story of the characters is canon, but the actual fact that they're Legos is just like a reenactment of what happened in Star Wars.
Yeah. And I'm sure there's some people's heads that are exploding that are listening to this that really do know Star Wars really well. Either way. I personally, it feels weird to me that Han Solo is not his real name. It makes me sad a little bit because I'm like, it's such an awesome name. Bob Iger, when talking about the Han Solo spinoff, he said to the at USC, the film picks up with Han Solo when he was 18 years old and takes him through when he was 24. So it takes place over like 6 years. There's a few significant things that happen in Han Solo's life, like acquiring a certain vehicle and meeting a certain Wookiee that will happen in this film, but you'll also discover how he got his name. I think we all knew the story had to be about how he gets the Millennium Falcon or Falcon, however we want to say it, I don't know, and how he meets Chewie, some obvious things. Interesting that he stops when he's 24, because how old do you think he was in A New Hope?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe late 20s, but early 30s.
What do you think?
I
You weren't listening again.
No, I was listening. Sorry, I'm like diving in full blown on the whole Star Wars expanded universe now, trying to understand it.
I think he's like 30.
That's what I would have always assumed, is that he was around 30. I mean, granted, that's how old Harrison Ford actually was, wasn't he?
Yeah. I think he was like 29 or 30, or like 30 or 31. He's right in that range right
I
there.
wonder if they're intentionally maybe leaving a little bit of a gap so that if these characters are really
Well, that's what I'm
loved,
wondering. Will there
that they
be a
can-
second Han Solo spinoff?
yeah,
Is
that's what
that
I'm
they're
saying.
leaving enough space, or maybe they're just kind of like, if they just do the one, they're like, well, you kind of know where it goes from here. But I don't want to say I assumed, but I just kind of thought like, okay, well, maybe they're gonna just connect it the same way like Rogue One ends moments before A New Hope. Maybe it was a similar situation. But it could be that they're leaving space. I mean, look at the caliber of the actors that they already have attached to this film. The Alden Ehrenreich, like, I'm sure if like this is a hit, they want to make another little bit of a franchise right here.
Yeah, and I'm not positive on the contracts or anything for the characters that were in Rogue One, but I almost have to believe that Disney probably signed them to like a 2 or 3 picture deal.
Well, I know that Felicity Jones was signed for more than one.
Yeah.
And it wasn't necessarily that she was going to live, but I think it's that the character, there's a rumor that character will actually overlay into Han Solo somehow or another, even if it's just a cameo.
Oh, they can also go and start doing prequels with it too. I mean, there was for Rogue One, for instance, we saw Jyn as a very young girl, and then it picks up right before all the events that start happening with the Death Star plans. So there is...
You're saying there's potential for like a Jyn Erso when she was with Saw?
Yes.
Somewhere to get from there to in the middle?
Thank you.
Interesting. Intriguing. But, that's kind of what I like, is we're in that realm right now where everything's still new, where we can kind of feel out where... Disney has a sense of predictability about where it goes with their stuff.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They, as we learned in the 90s, they'll pretty much sequel anything. Little Mermaid 2, Mulan 2, Pocahontas 2.
Lion King 1.5.
Lion King 1.5, Lion King 3, Lion Guard, whatever. Anyway, Woody Harrelson is in this film. He might have actually let the name of his character, I know this is exciting stuff. Hold on to your butts here. But he was on the Jimmy Fallon, and he was talking about his new movie that just came out, but he was asked about Star Wars, and he basically said, I play a guy named Beckett, who is kind of a criminal and a mentor to Han, and he said, I'll be there until the end of July. So the film's filming now, so him being there from now until July, that's a pretty big commitment of time. So essentially, I think he's going to be pretty much a main character in this film, as opposed to just a cameo.
So Han, it'll be like his apprentice kind of thing. Is that what we're thinking?
I'm assuming I'm thinking like Guardians of the Galaxy. It's like Yondu and Chris Pratt's character. You know what I mean? Not scoundrel, but what's is it like a scavenger or whatever? Kind of a
So not like a guy to look up to kind of thing.
like a pick a pocket or two.
Oh,
Who's that guy from Oliver? The guy who trains the orphans. What's his name? Fagin?
That is what Ice Cube is going to be playing in the brand new Oliver that Disney's doing.
Oh, is he really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
Oh.
Now we know.
So wait, you knew this whole time?
Mm-hmm.
Why didn't you just tell me?
You dug yourself in the hole. You have to dig yourself out.
Anyway, regardless, Bob Iger has said that he thinks that Han Solo is pretty much going to be the best one they've done yet. He says it's got a great cast, it's got great writers, great directors in this case, and so he's jazzed up. I'm jazzed up. It's supposed to come out. What?
Doesn't he have to say that? Bob Iger.
I know.
It's
Bob
like
Iger
what they
can
always
like,
say.
The actors
Yeah,
are
it's gonna be pretty good.
This is the best one yet.
Yeah.
And then you're like, they said that about Spider-Man 3. So it's supposed to come out May 2018. I'm assuming they're going to push it back to Christmas like they're trying to do with everything. It seems like that seems to be the formula to work really well for Star Wars right now. But in case you don't know, Alden Ehrenreich is Han Solo. Donald Glover is Lando Calrissian. Amelia Clark from Game of Thrones is apparently in this as somebody. They think maybe a love interest, but Woody Harrelson is Han's mentor. And then Michael Kenneth Williams from The Wire and the newest Ghostbusters film is in this as well, but I don't know what part he's playing. But there was also some news that this film is actually going to feature the first female prominent droid. Phoebe Walter-Bridge was brought on to play a part of a performance capture, and they think that she's going to be the female droid that they've referred to. So interesting stuff. But this is another one of the spin-offs. I very much look forward to it. So one of the Rogue One producers has actually said he has an idea for another spin-off, and this is the guy who was who's credited with the idea of Rogue One, and that's ILM's John Knoll. And he received encouragement from friends to pitch the concept of Rogue One to Kathleen Kennedy, who's the president of Lucasfilm. And he had been recently asked if he had any other ideas, and he said he's about 3/4 of the way through an idea that's almost all the way fleshed out. He just has to figure out the last part, and if he thinks he can solve the last part of it, he's going to pitch it. And he says if Kathleen Kennedy doesn't throw him out of his office, out of her office. So it sounds like he might have something really unique.
Oh yeah, it sounds like maybe it might be controversial or something.
Well, I think it was him who had said something about how he's hoping that they start relying less on nostalgia and they move forward into new territory more, which I think everybody kind of hopes.
Yeah,
to.
well, I think he was. I mean, if he was played a big part in Rogue One being a new movie, at least he's a guy that is looking for new characters.
Yeah.
So it looks like maybe he'll try to do something that's completely unrelated to the episodes. Like even Rogue One has its tie-ins.
No, yeah, for sure. That's what I'm hoping. And I do have a fun little Rogue One story here too. I read the other day about where the planet at the end of the movie, Scarif, got its name. Do you know?
No.
Do you know? It was from a Starbucks barista or a coffee house. He went in. So the screenwriter was like, oh, I've named all these things, named all these planets, and then they went to Gareth Edwards and they're like, well, you should name something in the movie. How about you name this last planet? And he was like, okay, give me a minute. And he left and went to the Starbucks, and they were like, okay, well, what's your name? And he's like, Gareth. And when he got the cup back, when they called out his name, they said Scarif. So he's like, that sounds like Star Wars. I'm gonna make that my Star Wars planet. And I was like, oh, that's kind of funny. So fun little thing there. And I did read another thing by one of the screenwriters, Gary Whitta, who revealed one of the cameos he didn't like in Rogue One, which was the one that I also dislike the most, and I think you feel the same way about it. But the two guys from the bar scene in Mos Eisley in A New Hope, the walrus guy gets his arm cut off, and the other guy, the Evazan and Ponda Baba. I don't know how to say any of these names. But he said he didn't like that. He said it was a little bit too much. And I agree. It doesn't make sense. Like, why were they in the movie? It was just because they were like somebody's favorite character. It was
like, let's pick a weird, obscure character and try to
work it in. Even though it's not on Tatooine, it's not on a planet that has to do with anything. So you're like, okay. And just a little last bit of news here about Star Wars Battlefront for anybody that's still into that. The second game, we are all of us here at the DIS are going to Star Wars Celebration, which is here in Orlando this year. On April 13th is the beginning of it, and EA will be there. And then the rumor is that the sequel will contain. They're going to make some announcements about the sequel, talk about the gameplay a little bit, and that it's going to have its own single player campaign, which was one of the biggest complaints about the original one.
No complaints for me on that.
I know you like online gaming. I like to play by myself. So,
Yeah, that's because you can't stand losing all the time and just constantly being shot and
Oh,
killed.
shots fired.
well, it's true though. So he's not incorrect, but it is. I also like things that can I can play a little bit and then go back and play a little bit and play a little bit. You know what I mean?
Now, I've logged an embarrassing amount of hours in Battlefront.
Yeah, well, I'm excited, but it's that apparently that game is supposed to come out at some point this year. Is what?
Yeah, it's supposed to. I believe it's gonna try to hit for a December release and time up, just like Battlefront 1 did with Force Awakens.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to that. I enjoyed the hype up to it, and I like when we play together. I just wish there was that's the thing that's missing for me. Like I like things that can reach a marker and then keep going. You know what I mean? Like you can stop here for a few minutes and then take a break and
Get to a saving point.
See, and I'm the absolute opposite. That's why I still play it. I play it once a week and just dive back into it, keep my skills sharp, and I love every single second of it. If I could have like a week straight of getting it out of my system, I would probably just do that to see if I could. But it's been like this addiction ever since that game came out.
Well, and you have the PlayStation VR, so you've played that version too, right?
Yeah, the X-Wing mission, but no, it all got rejuvenated for me when they released the Scarif level back in December to go alongside, and you could play as Jin and what's his name?
Kando or Nando?
No.
Cassian?
Not Cassian. Krennic.
Oh, you can be Krennic?
Yeah.
Oh, that's kind of cool. I'll have to start again, give it another shot. But
Dust it off.
yeah, it's just up there. But they released some sort of Power Ranger side-scrolling game recently, and I've just been playing that. So yeah, it absorbs too much of my time. But anyway, yeah. So just the last little bit, and then we'll get to our next thing. And this is what it has to do with. It is essentially, like I said in the beginning, Bob Iger did say that Disney is now officially looking past Episode 9 as kind of the end of the Skywalker, the episodes, the trilogy. That's the end of this trilogy, and he's basically, we know about the Han Solo movie, and there's some other movie in development. So he has said that the company is now planning essentially the next decade and a half. So to bring us into the 2030s of film. So I thought it would be kind of fun if we talked about things that we'd like to see in the future, new stuff that relies on nostalgia, anything like that. And I have one in particular, that I've been kind of like, I'd like to see them explore the Old Republic, because they always talk about in the original trilogy, well, I don't know how much it's talked about in the original trilogy, but in the prequel trilogy, they kind of make reference to the Jedi are already a dying order by Episode 1, because they talk about how they used to guard the Old Republic, and I kind of want to see the Jedi when they were at their prime. Like, when were they battling the Sith? When were they ridding the universe of the Sith? I want to see something like a sort of Seven Samurai film or something.
So you want to see kind of like them taking elements from the Old Republic video games, or just go in fresh and forget about those?
I like the idea of those video games, so it is kind of like one of those, make a nod to it, but do your own thing. Yeah. But I'd like to see something that, it doesn't even have to be the origin of the Jedi Order, but I really want to see when it was like essentially the Jedi were like sort of a religious military, I guess,
Well, I have to play off that because mine was the origin story of the Jedi Order.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like that would be cool. Like the first person like discovering kyber crystals, like to make his first lightsaber ever. Like the first person really like connecting with the Force.
See, and I think that we're going to learn a little bit about that in The Last Jedi, because, I feel like that's what they were alluding to almost in The Force Awakens, is like, what's her name? Rey. She's got to go to the temple, this Jedi temple, to find Luke. And essentially is the temple he's at supposed to be like the first Jedi temple or something? It's some sort of like ancient
ruins.
Yeah. So I'm curious. My thought is that we're going to get a little bit more of the history of the Jedi in the new film. But I'd essentially like to see something that takes place back then, and maybe they were much different, or what did the universe look like when it was cloaked in darkness again? I mean, we're essentially the 6, 7, 8 episodes have all kind of been about this like political uprising. I guess I kind of want to go back and see it more from more of like broken down into even more basic elements. Like it's always has been good versus evil, but I kind of want to see the establishment of
Like back in its heyday when it was at its strongest.
yeah.
That'd be cool.
And then what it was that kind of weakened the order, maybe, or something. Because all I'm thinking is like the rules had to have shifted. You know how they train the Jedi, the Padawan, whatever. I don't know. You got anything in mind, Craig?
So my first thing, origins are always great. It'd be great to learn more about the past and see how it came to be. I would like to start seeing side stories that go along. I think some of the best parts of Back to the Future Part 2 are when Marty ends up going back to 1955. And so there's two versions of him there, and so he's seeing how things are playing out from his side. I'm not saying Star Wars needs to get into some type of time travel element, but maybe tell the story of a stormtrooper who didn't give up and switch alliances during this part, but kept up as a soldier this entire time during the events
You're
of
saying
A New
like a
Hope.
flipped perspective, where
Yes.
it's essentially like, why is it that why are the people who serve the Empire so devout to the Empire?
Exactly, and we've had bits and pieces of that with The Force Awakens and finding out how those types of troopers.
Well, and Anakin too, in the original trilogy, you know, like it or hate it or whatever, but it is about his mind is about he wanted the order.
Yeah.
And that's why he wanted peace.
Well, and we know a lot about clone troopers going along with that too. But I want to see the perspective of what they do on a day-to-day basis and everything that they are working towards. And we know maybe even more about the independent contractors that came in to work on stuff like the Death Star. We already have that with Rogue One and a little bit of the Ersos, but there's got to be more than just him. He worked on the weapon.
It would be kind of cool, like what you're describing almost seems to me like a political thriller, but set against, or like a Jack Reacher situation or something, but set against that Star Wars background. Like it takes place in that time frame, so it has the elements of the Empire, and somebody's got to investigate something, so it involves that,
And it's kind of, a lot of it, it's something that's always been in my head because of the movie Clerks, when they're discussing all the independent contractors on the Death Star who died ruthlessly without any. They were just doing their job. They weren't doing. It's not like they were necessarily evil people. Let's start focusing on those people who were caught in the crossfires of all that stuff.
You know what? That sounds really interesting to me, because to bring it to another franchise, the X-Men franchise, what's always been their strongest, the strongest thing I think that they have going for them, story and character-wise, is the relation to groups that are different. Like Magneto is essentially like the bad guy, but one thing that the movies have always gotten right in sense of his character is that this is a man who's seen the Holocaust, and so he essentially hates humanity because he's seen it at its worst. And so his idea is that he's giving another shot to people that can be better, and then the X-Men themselves, I feel like a lot of gay people associate, are attracted to that franchise for the whole idea that the X-Men are people that are different than other people, not just gay people, but anybody that's kind of felt on the outside of society, they gravitate toward that.
So you're saying that X-Men is the Glee of the Marvel Universe?
The Star Wars universe? Oh, Marvel universe?
Yeah.
I see what you're saying. Is Mr. Shoe's class? Is he Professor Xavier? Wow, we've just next episode of DIS Pop, we're talking about Glee and how it's essentially a Marvel franchise.
Ay.
I don't know who's going to watch that episode. Like 5 people. My sister, who loves Glee, but yeah, but that's one of those things that is always interesting to me. So I really like seeing like people that I don't know. There's a lot there. There's something there. I feel like you stumbled onto a cool idea.
I also, looking realistically, Frank Oz is getting older and older.
This is one I have listed here.
And I think at least one side story with Yoda.
I
Not
wrote Yoda film.
yeah. I don't want to necessarily see it as a as I don't know how I'd want to see it because
Buddy cop. Yoda and like Qui-Gon, buddy cop.
yeah, it's really tough. I guess that would be cool, showing that sort of Yoda training another type of Jedi, but I also wouldn't want it to be CGI Yoda. It can't be doing backflips like in Episode 2. You just can't have that. So
I would agree with you 100%. I would definitely love to see Yoda because I'd love to see what, like, he always has given me this sense that he's been burned before. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And obviously in Empire, when he says to Luke, like, you're too old, he reluctantly trains him because he's got to train other ones. But he feels that you even kind of feel that in Episode 1. I mean, that he's taken a chance on somebody before that's gone wrong. And so I would also love to see, like, what is it about Yoda that made him the head of this council, or not the head of the council. I guess that's Sam Jackson's Mace Windu character. But is Mace Windu the head of the council? Yeah, because he's got the purple lightsaber, right?
No, he just has a purple light. No, I don't think it's for that reason.
Oh, is there no head of the council?
Well, he might be the head of the council, but I think it's just because Sam Jackson wanted a purple lightsaber.
Either way, I think it would be cool to kind of see how Yoda got to where he is. And like you said, it doesn't necessarily have to be like this is the Yoda film. I did mention Qui-Gon. It would be kind of cool to see Liam Neeson maybe worked into that a little bit. And then maybe it can be like sort of a, how did Obi-Wan... There was a book series that I used to read when I was a kid, when Episode 1 came out, that was about Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon and how he was chosen to be trained and stuff.
hey, that one guy from The Walking Dead that recently hit it big on doing the impressions.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see him stepping in and being Qui-Gon and something. He did a pretty good Liam Neeson.
Like a young Qui-Gon?
Yeah.
So I just looked it up. Mace Windu is just one of the masters of the High Council, but doesn't have...
Is there no head of the High Council? Because it might not be. It might just be there's like 6 people. Is there a Speaker of the House?
I would also, going in with this standard stereotypical stuff, I would like to see a little bit more exploration on Kashyyyk, the Wookiee planet.
I feel like they never really talk about that because in the original... in the Legends, it was that they were, and you see it at the end of Revenge of the Sith a little bit. Kashyyyk is enslaved, and they're used to build the Death Star. And that's in the original mythology, that I don't know is necessarily canon, but I think we might see some of that in Han Solo's film, though.
Yeah, and I'd also like a little bit more on Jabba the Hutt. You're supposed to be so afraid of Jabba, like he's supposed to be this menacing character. I never felt like that in any of the films. Like, you should be afraid of this character. He is someone
like a Godfather situation.
Yes, yeah. Maybe explore a little bit on why Jabba is so powerful.
Well, it would be interesting if they do. There's the big rumor that supposedly there might be a not Jango Fett, Boba Fett film, which I think would be a waste because we've already know why he is the way he is, so like it's just kind of beating a dead horse for me. But it would be interesting if they did sort of a like a Goodfellas type of movie situation that involves like Jabba, the bounty hunters like Boba, and kind of sets them in that mode. That would be kind of
The thing with Boba is that he is, if you ask a lot of people in the Star Wars universe, what's your favorite villain? Boba Fett. He has this cool persona about him, even though he has barely any screen time, and he has one of the most embarrassing deaths of anything in the Star Wars universe. For me, people just build him up in their minds so much as he is like the epitome of cool. He is the coolest bounty hunter you can get.
They love the Mandalorian armor. And
all they could do is ruin those thoughts and expectations. And for me, that's something sacred because I love Boba Fett. I don't know why I love Boba Fett. I like the mystery. Yeah,
that makes sense. And that's why I feel like we already know enough. I like you know what I mean. You've seen we know he's got a vengeful side because the Jedi chop his father's head off. So like that's enough. I don't need anything in between. If he makes kind of a cameo in one of these other movies, sure, that's fine. You know what I mean? Like, as long as he's pretty much this is the character we know. You know.
Okay,
Yes.
so two things. There is a Grand Master of the Jedi and a Master of the High Council, but it doesn't specify in any of the movies who is who on the Wikipedia page.
Okay.
So I guess there is, but not really any more details than that. So for my idea, first question, did any children of like the Empire live on the Death Star?
Did like families live on the
Yeah,
Death Star?
yeah.
Is that what you're asking? Like,
Yeah.
is it a Star Trek Next Generation
So
scenario?
like in Rogue One, like
Like if the family hadn't separated, would they have gone with
and they just
what's
gave
the dad's name in that? Or so the father.
Yeah,
or so,
yes.
But yeah.
Like, so would she have gone on would she have lived on the Death Star with them if they had just said like, okay, we're good? And
I don't know that they would have been on the Death Star because I never got that vibe that there were like families on there.
okay, well, my movie idea is basically like a family that's surrounded by the Empire. That there's a kid that feels like attracted to.
Galen, that was his name. Sorry,
Yeah, yes,
I remembered.
But basically, a kid that feels like they have like that they want to be a Jedi kind of a thing, and they realize like they have like some abilities and stuff.
There was this interesting subplot in Rogue One that wasn't really explored, and if you watch the opening of Rogue One when it comes out a little more closely, that's kind of what Jyn Erso was supposed to be, I think, is because I think Galen was just, scientist, and then the mother, whose name I don't remember because it's only spoken a couple times in the movie.
Because she gives her the kyber crystal.
Yes,
necklace.
and she's dressed like a Jedi. When you rewatch it, she's wearing the robes and everything. The only thing is, like, she pulls out a blaster, and you're like, Jedi probably would have used lightsaber. However, if the kyber crystal was from her lightsaber and she no longer has a lightsaber, she probably would have used a blaster. I mean, we've seen Ewan McGregor use Obi-Wan Kenobi use a blaster. But anyway, I like where you're going. I see what you're saying. Like, kind of a flower growing in the darkness story.
Yeah, right. Of like trying to overcome and being surrounded by darkness and
Yeah.
like, maybe having people around. Like if he or she does feel like they want to become a Jedi, that there's people like, well, there's the Sith, but like they're like, no, like hiding the fact that they want to be a Jedi. I just think that would be kind of cool.
Yeah, I see. Like a Matilda.
Yeah,
I would like to honestly see. So the Marvel universe has started playing with this since Winter Soldier was like a '90s political thriller kind of scenario, and then Guardians of the Galaxy was the space opera, and even though it's not Disney Marvel, Logan was essentially a Western. Is that I like the idea of these franchises, these universes playing with genre films and sort of like falling into that fold. So I'd really like to see the Star Wars universe getting out of space opera and start playing with the other.
Well, I mean, that's
stuff.
what Han Solo is going to be.
Is going to be what?
It's going to be a cowboy film. Han Solo is a space cowboy.
And do you
Then
think
that's
that they
why
will
they-
use NSYNC's Space Cowboy
And why
as his theme song?
and that's why they were clearly easy to make a decision to get an actor who would just come off of a critical acclaim of playing a cowboy in a movie, and
Yeah, that's
also
true.
slightly resembling Han Solo.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah, while it does have the aspects of Han Solo kind of being a scum of sorts, he's a cowboy.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to that.
So what you're saying is you want Star Wars the musical.
When I was younger and you could first start like going through the internet and looking at like message boards and stuff like that, I found the script for the Star Wars musical and I downloaded it and I have it like bound and printed somewhere. It took essentially an entire tree to print out this script, but I don't know why. I would always print scripts, and that was something I printed. It's terrible. Lyra is the name of the mother, anyways. Jin's mother. But yeah. Anyway, anything else? I for one would also love to see Ewan McGregor. However they do it, I don't care. Reprise the role of Obi-Wan Kenobi. because I would really like to see him in a really good Star Wars movie, because he essentially is probably my favorite part of the prequel trilogy. And I feel like he hasn't really been given that moment to really be like Obi-Wan Kenobi, you know?
I
Thoughts on
absolutely agree. No,
Okay.
I do agree that Ewan McGregor, I just all kind of blurb together there. He did not get his what he deserved, and he really enjoyed playing the role, and he still wants to do it. So it would only make sense to try to, give him a handout. What
Yeah,
else
no,
has he done recently? He deserves something. So he's already in the Disney family now.
That's what I'm saying. He's friendly. He's friendly with Disney, and he did remember he did work for Force Awakens.
Yeah.
because it's his voiceover in the Obi-Wan thing. Him and Alec Guinness. So I would like to see that. Anything else?
I would like to see also my last final one. I would like to see them bring back the Ewok stories. So we obviously had two movies
Caravan of Courage.
based solely on the Ewoks. I think there's still more to be told there, and it's. I would almost argue that if Disney really wants to tap into the children's market with that, that's a good way. Even though those movies left you with nightmares, kind of in the same way that
I you know the story, right? I knew the Ewok movies before I knew what Star Wars was. So we had it taped from TV or something, and it was the first one with Sindel and Mace, and they're after the parents with Wicket. The second one I only saw a couple times because the babysitter had it, and I was like, I don't like this one as much. Especially, I hate movies where the Alien 2 versus Alien 3, where the whole movie is about saving somebody and then they die in the next few minutes of the next movie, Jason the Bourne movie. So this whole movie's about them saving the whole family, and then the entire family dies in the first 2 minutes of the second Ewok movie, and you're like, what the heck was the whole point of the first one?
The whole payoff of
Yeah.
the celebration that they won in the first one is
And then
done.
you're like, oh well, her bracelet falls off, and they see all the lights go boop 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 out in the second one. But regardless, the Ewok. I didn't know what Star Wars was, and I used to love when I was a kid the Ewok movie. I loved Wicket, and I loved Mace, and I had his blaster. We made a strap and everything, and I would we reenact scenes at daycare, and it was terrifying when Mace sticks his finger in the water and it sucks him in, and all the kids are just staring at him on the water while he's drowning, and the giant Ewok at the end, whatever it was.
And that's they don't make kids entertainment like that anymore.
That edgy kind of
exactly. Back with Jim Henson doing The Labyrinth and Dark Crystal, both very kind of you watch them as adults and it doesn't have that element, but as kids growing up, you were also slightly kind of creeped out or scared by them too.
It
feels
stuck with you.
Yeah, and we've talked a lot about the darker side of children's movies with the first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. Even there's just stuff in the 80s going into the 90s had that kind of darker side to it that just hasn't. I haven't seen it. Granted, I can't say that I follow every single form of children's entertainment that comes out, but I feel like it's something that. Let's not shy away from it. Stop holding kids' hands every second of the way. Sometimes you're going to be scared, and it might be because of a movie.
Yeah.
But that's okay.
It's like Jurassic Park. You know what I mean? That obviously was a movie for older. It was PG-13, but we saw it when we weren't supposed to be seeing it. You know what I mean? And but it also embedded itself on our souls that we'll never let it go. I mean, I got a poster for my birthday, and my brother secretly told my mother to have it taken down in my room because he hated looking at the dinosaur eating the tire. And it was the same with the Ewok movie or Gremlins. That was a big one for me too. I had Ewok taped on TV and we had Gremlins taped on TV, and Gremlins always used to scare me, but I felt so good for having sat through and watched the whole thing every time when I was done. I always used to think that the movie would change at the end too. So when Spike is attacking Billy in the department store, I always was like, this is hard. It's very hard for me to watch because I could never touch saw blades because they also cut Elliot's finger in E.T. And then this gremlin is throwing them at this kid in a department store. So, I learned never to touch table saws from these movies, but it was
lesson.
Good lesson all around. But it was exciting, but it also was it gave you a sense of adventure.
I think there's that generation of film from the 70s, 80s, and 90s for kids that little kids feel like you're getting away with something, and they don't really have that anymore. It's that level of
Like I can't believe my parents are letting me watch this. Yeah,
but for the parent side, it's like that level of creepiness, but not like inappropriate horror and gore type of like scare. You're not scared because it's like overly violent or like gory, but because it's just like kind of creepy.
So you're essentially, what you're saying here, to go back to your original point about the Ewok movies, is that you're saying you think that they should do maybe a movie marketed toward the younger audience?
Yeah, absolutely. Right now you have Star Wars Rebels. That's about the closest. That's about the closest thing that is marketed directly towards children, being that it's on what channel do they call that?
Disney XD.
Disney XD, thank you. Yeah, it's on that, so that kind of is. And then parents who are willing to share the Star Wars movies with their kids obviously get ingrained into that, and kids who come to Walt Disney World, Disneyland get to experience that. But that is all just a small aspect. And now look, people who are cutting cable, that right there goes Disney XD. And I don't believe Star Wars Rebels has made it to Netflix or anything yet. I know Clone Wars is on Netflix, but I don't think Rebels is.
Oh, cool. Yeah, Clone Wars is, I think.
And so, these stuff that might be a little bit more children friendly it's a little bit harder. And, our own Corey Martin has talked about him trying to get his kids into Star Wars and struggling with it. And these are kids who see Star Wars going into the parks. So, granted, not everything is going to be for everyone, but something like the Ewoks that might have a darker element to it, but still is very child friendly in a sense that they do look like just a bunch of teddy bears running around. I think that should be something that is explored again. Because adults are going to find a lot of joy out of it too, as long as it's not terrible.
Well, if they take it in the Super 8 vein, where it's like that's where you want to again play on that nostalgia. But I'd be okay with a Star Wars film that kind of left all the elements we're familiar with and did something about the outskirts of the world, like how Serenity. The whole basis of Joss Whedon's Serenity was like that the government had expanded, the central government of the universe, whatever it was called, expanded. They were terraforming all these planets and kept going and going and going. And the idea is that the government can't reach all the way through all its territory. So this is all about like what happens on the outskirts. Can the law be enforced out there, or has it become like the West, essentially the Western in space? And I think that if they kind of take a note from that show and they do something in the Star Wars universe, it would be interesting. But I do think no matter what happens, they're going to have to introduce some sort of, if it's going forward, some sort of new type of Force study, because it's like what you said, the kid with the that's like raised and like develops the powers, like, is the Force still out there? Are we going to be seeing Guardians of the Whills, like those type of people who like feel the Force but they don't use the Force? I don't know. I'd like to see some more of that. I'd like to get out there, because right now it feels like it's like trying to say it's coming to an end, but it's like right now we're just traveling down this little slipstream, but it feels like this could easily be an ocean as opposed to a river.
Well, it should be an entire universe, but really right now it's like the Skywalker family, like,
but
home videos.
Yeah. So that's all I got. You got any more? That's all you got? What about you? That's all you got? So I'd be curious to see like what other ideas people come up with. So make sure that you leave comments if you're watching this video. If you're listening, tweet at us, DIS POP Show. I want to, what ideas or what you'd like to see out of the Star Wars universe. And so that will do it for this episode. I don't know what we'll be talking about next time, but who knows? Maybe it'll be interesting. Maybe it won't. But until then, thank you for watching and listening to this episode of DIS POP. I should have said, may the Force be with you.